Fish Stripes Live. We are back for another series. Whoa! Fish on First Live. We are back for another series. I immediately realized when Isaac made his face. We are presented by La Pop. That is LAPOP. It is a little later start time today. We have the Texas Rangers versus the Miami Marlins. The Miami goes up to the Lone Star State to face Texas, a team that is the best in the AL West, one of the best in baseball. And we are here to preview. We have a lot to talk about given the 4-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies. That did not go very well, but as always, we are here with our usuals: Eli Sussman, Isaac Azut, Alex Carver, and we are here with Yessi from Sonlos Marlins. Yessi, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you guys. It's really awesome to be here.
Alrighty, so we are gonna start with, I guess the last series. I guess we could just kick it off with that 4-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies. Miami was unable to take the split, which would have been the ideal scenario here. Isaac, just take us through this. I think you were there for 2 out of the 4 games. So
yeah, I covered the first 2 of that series. I think Tuesday's the one that really hurts. You had Sandy going 8 innings and David Robertson in the bullpen just couldn't hold it for him. And then I was there as a fan on Wednesday, which is honestly probably in contention for game of the year in all of Major League Baseball. Just back and forth. I think Sarah Langs put out their first team in 50 years to score in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th inning of a single ball game, which is very cool. And then, it was just tough, the outcomes of the first 2. And then the fourth one, you're going Johnny Cueto against Michael Lorenzen. The Phillies have to be ecstatic with how Lorenzen showed out in his team debut. I think Miami helped him out a lot, just swinging at the first pitch and not making weak contact all game long against him. So that was a really frustrating game in particular. Thankfully, they did salvage that one game on Wednesday. But besides that, like you said, Kevin, a very disappointing 4-game set.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that game 3 because that game 3 was wild. I think that's the easiest way to put it. This game may have ended around like 11 o'clock, I want to say, around there. Josh Bell, obviously, I would say was the player of the game for Miami. He ends up going with a 4-hit night. He had the home run. He played very, very well. Yessi, what did you see in that 3rd game for Miami? Obviously, very crazy.
I was there in live in the stadium, so it was awesome when they went to extra innings and they were like tied and they were winning and then losing and then tied again. It was awesome to see them. Despite of this series where they were losing 3 out of 4 of the games, I can see both teams are really close. Like they are evenly matched, both of the teams. Each game was practically decided the 7th inning or later. Mm-hmm. So what I can see is the Marlins can almost win the 2 games if they want to. So they are even with the Phillies, and that just made me think that they can take care of that. They are really good. Like the Phillies went to the World Series, and they play against the Braves. So the Marlins are almost they are very good. Like we can take something good about that.
Right. Yeah, touching on exactly what she's referring to, one of the games that they lost, the Sandy game, where he was amazing through 8 innings. You bring in David Robertson with the lead, and almost every time Robertson is going to close out that game. And that was one of the few exceptions where obviously he was off and he gave up 3 runs and they end up losing that one. And that game goes the other way. If he just has his normal outing, the reason why they brought him in, then it is a series split, which is what I predicted, but I didn't foresee Robertson messing up in that situation. And even in that game, that was one of those games where they should have been up well more than 1-0. And the reason they weren't is because these new bats hadn't quite arrived yet. They left a lot of runners on base, a ton of runners on base in that particular game in the series. And you'd expect that to go a little bit differently now that they have Josh Bell and Jake Burger instead of, I assume Segura was starting one of those games that you replay that game with the current roster and probably they have a bigger lead in the first place to work with. Yeah, so I came away with like a similar impression of this, with the fact that probably the most disappointing player in the whole series was Robertson, because in 2 separate games he screwed up, both that first one and then even this one where they ended up bailing him out and winning. He was one that gave up a 2-run homer in extras that put them in a really tough position as well. So they simply need him to be better. He has such a long track record of being a great reliever. You would hope that this is like the worst spot of his Marlins tenure, and that from this point forward, he's more consistently great.
Yeah, that's the reason that you bring in guys at the deadline when you're on a competing team, right? You see it immediately with Bell, who does something that only 4 other Marlins have ever done, and that's record at least 4 hits or record 4 hits. Nobody's ever done 5 hits. Record 4 hits in your team debut. Jeff Conine did it in the inaugural game. JB Shuck last did it somehow in 2018. But for the first time in 5 years, they have a debuting player who gets 4 hits in a game, including that huge one in the 11th. All of them were huge, and he gets a home run as well, like crazy. I think only 3 players, including him, have gotten home runs in their Marlins debut. So you see the importance of bringing in players like this. Yes, you're right, Eli Robertson has been so far disappointing in his Marlins tenure. Like that Sandy game, you got to close that out. Like the guy goes 8 innings. They take him out. I know that there's going to be differing viewpoints on taking out Sandy and not taking out Sandy when he's at 101 pitches. I know Isaac talked about that previously. I didn't mind him taking out Sandy to go to the closer that he brought in to do his job. He didn't get his job done. That's an issue, right? So it sucks to see that. Hopefully Robertson can rebound because they gave up a lot to require this player. And so far, man, that's kind of the difference in the series, right? Has been this player. They could have at least split it, right? Didn't do it. So and that's a lot of that's on D-Rob. So hopefully he can bounce back.
And that's the thing, and you could look at it from those two sides with Robertson in that first game where, yeah, you acquired him. This is exactly the moment you acquired him for. You acquired him to come into the 9th and shut it down, and he didn't do it the first game, and he wasn't able to do it the third game, and that's where I want to go to next in a bit. But with Sandy, it's Sandy, and if this guy's clicking and this guy's throwing you 100 in the 8th inning to strike guys out, man, I think it's hard to go with Robertson, who throws probably 20 miles less. Not, this is also a team that he was on, so hitters obviously know his stuff. And as Isaac said, that dugout was probably celebrating when they saw David that Sweet Home Alabama play and him coming out to that on the mound. And not only did he do it once where he messed up the game, he did it twice. So obviously, we can talk a little about Robertson, Burger, Bell. Isaac, just your thoughts on the new acquisitions, Bell with a great first act, and then obviously Berger, pretty patient, honestly. That was very impressive.
Yeah, both of these guys really showing some quabs in their debuts. I'm loving the patience for both of these guys, especially Bell. Alex mentioned it, 5th guy to have 4 hits in his team debut, just insane, and clutch hits, very, very clutch hits in the case for Bell. And just making the pitcher work. He's one of the few guys that made Lorenzen work during his at-bats, because everyone else was just, making life a little bit easy for Mr. Michael in his team debut. But yeah, Berger, I don't think you're going to find a more likable Marlin on that team than Mr. Noah Berger, Jake Berger.
Berger have just 1 strikeout on 10 times at the bats in 2 games, so it's really good.
Yeah, maybe fans don't get used to that. Jake Berger does strike out a little bit, but he hasn't yet. He hasn't shown that. Today he faces a lefty, and he's got some pretty extreme platoon splits, and Jordan Montgomery is pitching protected, so be on the lookout for him to maybe, get a couple of extra base hits today.
And then obviously Ryan Weathers was the other acquisition. He is in AAA Jacksonville. The expectation is that he'll pitch at some point. We thought he was going to pitch yesterday. It went Monteverde. He's not going to pitch this weekend, is what we're seeing. So eventually we'll see Ryan Weathers make his organizational debut for this team. But
what I will say about that trade, we haven't seen Weathers yet. You're right. I don't think you'll see him tomorrow either. I think it's going to be Edward Cabrera tomorrow for Jacksonville and Daniel Castano tonight.
Jacksonville rotation got so much better in like 24 hours.
It did, yeah. But maybe on Sunday we see Ryan. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but it's possible. We're going to see him at some point. But what Marlins fans may not have seen, I tweeted it out. I don't know if anybody else did, but I tweeted out that Sean Reynolds struck out the side in his AAA debut for El Paso. So, yeah, we're going to see what Ryan does eventually, but Sean just keeps going, man, and that guy's going to be in the big leagues before long.
Is Coop even in the lineup today for them?
No, good question.
No, he's not.
What are the views of Bale? He make for hits, and not just any hits. They were like clutch hits.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was the
he-
one that had the game-tying hit on one of the games that the
Yes.
Robertson they fell behind. Like he was the one that he
Mhm.
bolted it like right through the legs of Trey Turner. He hit it so hard that it went straight through there. Yeah, there's no doubt that his batted ball quality, his ability to hit the ball hard, is really near the top tier. And by any measure, he's a guy that just seemed to be getting unlucky for a lot of this year in Cleveland. It didn't make a whole lot of sense that somebody with his strength that also has pretty good contact ability. He's above average at putting balls in play and avoiding strikeouts, and yet he just wasn't getting the results to go along with it. So with him, that was a move that I had complicated feelings about. Like I feel like he was a player that was available, and if they were simply willing to release Segura on their own, if Bruce Sherman, I need to give him credit for like bumping up his investment in the team by taking on a big contract. But what he could have also done is he could have simply cut Segura, ate all that money, and still done a trade of Bell that required even less to get him. That would have been in the perfect world to do that instead of having to involve a prospect of Khalil Watson's potential in there. But that being said, this is a player that I think was clearly due to play better moving forward than he had been so far prior to the trade. So I like it. I do think he'll be better than Garrett Cooper down the stretch.
Yeah.
Well, and something that I think has been mentioned correctly is simply his availability. This is a player that has been so durable during his career, only a couple really minor injuries the entire time. And with Cooper, you simply couldn't trust him to do that. So even if they are comparable players, having one that's actually available is going to make a huge difference.
Quickly with Bell, he also looked pretty good on defense. He made his plays, and usually he's been a pretty league average guy just below when you look at DRS, by DRS when you look at it. So good to see that. Jorge Lopez came in, I believe, in the 11th. Very clutch on his end there. It was either the 10th or the 11th. He had guys on base, and he was able to get out of that jam. So good there for him. So another trade acquisition getting it going. But I think we're ready kind of to move on, and I think we could talk a little bit about I want to quickly touch up on the Craig Mish article because we obviously look at the rotation, what's lining up for this Texas series, and there's a guy that's not there. It's TBD. So the expectation is that Yuri will be joining the Marlins next weekend against the Yankees. Obviously, very little workload. I believe he's only made like 2 starts. Like each of them, the first one was 2 innings, the second one was 3, and the third. Isaac, do you think it's time that Miami finally brings back Yuri Perez?
As if it wasn't already clear with the trade acquisitions, they're putting all their chips in here. You know, they're letting him reach his innings limit up in the big leagues. They're calling him back up, I think, sooner than they thought they would. They kept him up longer than they thought they would. There's really no specific plan that they seem to be following. But, hey, I'm all for it. So this would be you got the Texas series, then get next week in Cincinnati, and then once they come home, Yuri Perez would probably start one of those games. I'm not sure which one it lines up to be. But, wow,
Right.
As if it's not a big enough draw that the New York Yankees are in town, Yuri Perez is back. And I think Sandy would line up to pitch one of those games as well. So, yes, like Craig said, it's about time. I think he gets one more start down there in Pensacola. And that's it. We'll see him back in the big leagues. And, yeah, with him, Luzardo, Sandy, it's a nice 3-headed monster you have there.
And
Yes,
Soriano may pitch tomorrow, so he has been pitching really well.
Yes.
Yeah, what have you seen from Yuri, Yessi? Since, obviously his big league debut, he looked great, and until now.
I didn't hear what you.
Oh, just what have you been your thoughts on Yuri?
And Yuri, he's awesome. He's really awesome. My only worriness was when they were keep like using him, and I was worried that he's really young, and so it was good that he's not in the big leagues for a little bit, and then he's coming back. He's really
Yeah.
strong.
You're on that side. You're on
I
the side.
really
where
like
you-
him.
So you were behind the decision to give him a little bit of a break.
hmm
Okay. Eli, what can we expect from Yuri when he comes back? Do we expect him kind of to be used basically how it was at the big league level with the same restrictions, or do you think we'll want to kind of preserve him a little more this time around to see if they could maybe get those innings in the playoffs?
This is a fair question. The indication seems to be that they're stretching him out to be a regular starter, at least for the near term, at least to get through the regular season. That's the reason why he's not up like right now, is because that first start he threw first minor league start, he threw about 45 pitches. His last one about 60 something. And so there's one more incremental step before he gets fully stretched out to where he was before. So all indications are he's going to be used the same way he was, which is that he's on a slightly tighter leash than the normal starter is, but he's been so effective and so good and so efficient that usually he's still going to be able to get through 5.5 and 6 innings most times, even when they are having him, the training wheels are still on to some extent. So it is a great question what happens if they make the playoffs, but that'd be an amazing issue to have. I think they'll be plugged into the rotation. There's a vacant spot. This is pretty simple this time around. It's Sandy, Luzardo, Braxton, Cueto, and then there's that void where Edward used to be, or when that was kind of a rotating cast of characters when Edward was out. They needed somebody there. The reporting also in the same article is that they wanted to get an actual proven starter to help with their depth, including specifically Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn being one of them, who would have been affordable to them mainly because he's having an awful year. Yet somebody that they could trust to at least eat those innings. And they were unable, I guess they just didn't like they were uncomfortable with the prices that these rental starting pitchers were going at and didn't make that move. I'm sure they inquired on others in addition to Lynn. Speaking afterwards, Kim kind of spins it differently and says that they were all focused on their offense. And I think the reality is they really needed to address both areas, the offense and the rotation. And so that's why I'm still not totally enthusiastic about the moves that they made, because I felt they needed to. I would have swallowed that bullet and made the big deal to get some sort of starter to fill those innings, because their depth is so fragile right now. If Perez just performs the way that he did before, that is a lot to ask. But if he is somehow performing at the same level that he was early in the year, then he's better than anybody they could have acquired at this deadline. And that will be such a key for this team. This is a weird situation the Marlins are in, where they do have players on their roster that have exceptional upside, between Yuri, Jazz in center field. And if those guys just stay healthy and perform the way that they're capable of doing, they're better than any of the players that were actually moved at this deadline. But it's such an enormous if in those cases. And that's why you can kind of see this rest of the season going in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah, when you look back to some of these trades for the starters, a lot of them were possible. When you look at the Lorenzen deal, I think Miami easily could have maybe won up the offer. Obviously, Montgomery, you had Flaherty. That one was a good one. They got a pretty good prospect there. But Isaac, when you look back at these deals, who do you kind of think was gettable for Miami in the starting pitching department, obviously?
The starting pitching department, I'm just curious to see what they give up for Lance Lynn. It couldn't have been that much, and he is having a tough year. But I think they just decided to put all their chips in for hitters, knowing that they were going to have Yuri Perez. I meant to ask him that, just knowing that you do have this stud ready to help you out whenever you want him to. Maybe that doesn't just makes you think, okay, hey, I don't need to waste my prospects for a starting pitcher when we have one coming up right now. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but I'm curious to see if that has something to do with their decision to not really want to, not quote unquote waste more prospect capital on starting pitching depth, on veteran starting pitching depth when they feel like they have it.
And just for reference, Yuri on Fangraphs, it shows Ryan Weathers for Friday. I would expect that's Yuri's spot once he's brought back to the active roster. And I guess I could bring up this conversation, and this is for all of you. Do you guys think there's a possibility that they bring Ryan Weathers and Yuri, some type of, you start Weathers and you piggyback him off with Yuri to conserve the innings? You have Yuri in the back and kind of shut the game down for you, and some sort of bullpen role. Eli, I know I'd mentioned Yuri in the bullpen before. They brought in Weathers for a reason. I know he's more of a long-term project, but I would like to see him at the big leagues at some point, see how it goes. Obviously, you would have Mel whips up everyone into shape. So,
if Yuri's on the team, he's starting games. That's it. He's starting baseball games if he's on the Marlins. The last two starts for him in Pensacola, like you guys were saying, they have babied him. Yes, he's only thrown 5.2 innings.
So like 10 strikeouts.
Very unlucky in his last start, but he has 12 strikeouts and 1 walk in 5.2 innings with Pensacola. Yeah. Doesn't belong in Pensacola. I was not a fan of sending him back to the minors. I understood it, but I was not a fan of it at all. I hated it. We talked about that when it happened. Now he's going to be back probably before they thought he was going to be back, because they couldn't get something done for a starter at the deadline. So their plan didn't really work. I don't think how they would have liked. He's going to be back probably sooner than they would have expected from what I understand of that situation. But that's okay because this guy belongs in Major League Baseball. He doesn't belong in the minors. He doesn't belong in Pensacola. He doesn't belong in Jacksonville. He belongs starting Major League Baseball games, going 5-6 innings for the Marlins, especially when the Marlins are trying to compete. And this is arguably the best pitcher on your roster. Maybe even better than Sandy because Sandy's had his struggles this year. And I know he was good in his last start, but I think Yuri, when he was sent down, was definitely the best guy on the rotation. They sent him down. We talked about that. I think he's still the best pitcher in the minors. Obviously, doesn't belong in the minors. He's going to be starting games. So I would say to answer your question, Kev, they'll get a look at Weathers in some regard in the minors before they call him up.
I think Eury will start the game, but it won't go more than 5 innings because I think we need him for the playoffs.
Mhm.
And also, I like Weathers. I don't know if I say it right. I think he deserves a chance because his Cooper was like exchanged for him. I don't know how you say that. Like Weathers were.
Green deal, yeah.
So he deserves a chance too.
Yeah, you're right. Cooper on an expiry contract, like his contract was over at the end of the season, and they trade him. I didn't like losing Reynolds, as I mentioned before, but he hasn't made it.
Eli was heartbroken.
Eli didn't like that either, and he had a good debut for AAA, but it's a guy that hasn't made his debut yet. But you're right. Bringing back what they got in Weathers, I think is a good project to have. I don't think he's perfect right now, but I think it's a good project. Just in terms of the same with the reliever that they got as well. Geez, what's the guy's name?
Jorge Lopez.
Jorge Lopez from Minnesota. Kind of the same thing. Kind of projects, right? But guys with big league experience that can contribute right now. There's definitely value in that. So I agree.
Let's talk a little bit about Weathers. I don't think we've mentioned him too much in terms of just the player that Miami's getting back. Obviously, they traded Garrett Cooper's expiring contract and Sean Reynolds, who I don't think he'll spend too much time with the AAA team there. I believe it's El Paso. So this season, Weathers for the Padres has only pitched in 8 games, 33 innings. Am I reading that right? 12 games, 44 innings. I'm sorry. 6.25 ERA, 4.80 FIP. He has 3 pitches, fastball, changeup, sweeper, which is nice. So just Eli, talk to us a little bit about what Miami is getting in Ryan Weathers, who's 23. And I think you mentioned this in the spaces. This is a guy who just flew up the minor leagues. And that's why you're seeing a 23-year-old in this case, be up in the big leagues so early. And I guess fun fact, if by now you guys don't know, he's the son of David Weathers, who's
a second-generation Marlin, which I don't think has happened before, even though the Conines are trying to do it themselves, with Griffin maybe getting there someday.
Strikeout rate.
But
remember, remember Luzardo was pitching a little bit bad when they recently got him, but he improves a lot. So maybe Weathers is someone that can improve a lot too.
Yes,
did Luzardo end up making a minor league start for Miami?
He did not. I remember that very vividly. They optioned him to the minors when they traded for Luzardo, but then within a few days they did bring him up before actually pitching down there. The difference is that team in 2021, they were out of the race, were not contending, so they could let Luzardo learn and pitch through his mistakes because the team was not going to the playoffs, not trying to go to the playoffs, and he struggled. Luzardo was really bad the end of that year. It was at the very final start. I think people remember this final start of 2021 against the Phillies. Yeah. That is when something clicked and he carried it over to the future. He was great. With Weathers, there's more pressure on this team to win. So there are some similarities. This guy, it's so strange, the quality of the stuff that he has, that he just can't strike anybody out. It is confusing. He does have that mid-90s fastball that actually gets up to 97 from what I just saw in his AAA start, the last one he made before this trade happens. Like, he has really great velocity from that side and a great changeup as well. But that sweeper has a long way to go. It just doesn't have a third pitch whatsoever that he trusts or that gets guys out. And frankly, his other pitches, even that great fastball, it does not get by major league hitters the way that you think it might. I have a lot of hope for him, a lot of optimism long term. It's the difference is that the team is contending right now, so they can't trust him. They can't put him in that situation and expect good results when he's now gotten several opportunities with the Padres the last few years and the results haven't been there. So a good long-term project. I would not be surprised whatsoever if he shows up in spring training next year and all of a sudden he is just made those slight adjustments, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is a big piece of their 2024 rotation if something clicks. But right now, those changes can happen immediately, and for the moment, he hasn't had that chance to actually talk with Mel. So it'll take a little while, I think.
Do you think they should try him on the bullpen? Or whether?
Well, I just look at the bullpen they have now. I don't know where he really fits in.
No spots.
They have there is
pretty good. Yeah.
There's a lot of right now. I guess Smeltzer is the weak link, but Smeltzer is the one that would be going when Yuri gets back next week. You look at the rest of their bullpen, and it's Nardi and it's Scott, and with as much as AJ Puck has struggled, I think you need to trust him. You need to keep him on the roster and give him a little bit longer to get himself figured out as well. They are in a good, and even Steven Okert, of course. Steven Okert has been really consistently good. They have really, that's one of the strengths of the team on paper is the left-handed relievers that they had. So with Weathers, I think Kim has talked about this, that if there is enough injuries that pile up to their rotation the rest of the way, that they would be willing to bring him up and starting him. But for the moment, you need to just wait till that happens. I think he's in his right spot right now, that he is behind those other guys on the depth chart.
The thing that sticks out to me about what's on the screen right now is the spin rates. You can have the greatest velocity in the world, and you can try to have 97, 98, like you said, Eli. But man, when you look at K rates down, chase rates down, all of that other stuff, and like you said, with the sweeper that he's still trying to develop, and the fastball spin rate that's at the 43rd percentile, which is definitely not great. If you're throwing straight pitches, you're not going to get it past major league hitting. So I think that's his main problem. He just needs to learn to spin his pitches a little bit better, get a little bit more movement, a little bit more deception, because I think he throws a lot of his stuff very, very straight and narrow right now. I think that's kind of his main issue that he needs to figure out. But if they get him around Mel, man, I think he definitely has the ability to build that up. But like Eli said, it's kind of a longer term project, just like the guy they got from the Twins. I keep forgetting this guy's name, but just like the guy they got from the Twins, Jorge Lopez. Yeah. So just like Jorge Lopez, kind of longer term bullpen pieces. Maybe Weathers can move into like a swingman role, maybe a back end starter role possible. But he's going to have to improve that spin rate and start coming by some more deception if he wants to make that happen.
Really quickly with Weathers, though, I mean, when Miami makes this trade, I think it shocked a little bit of people. Obviously this guy's been in the big leagues for a while, and this is just wrap up before the break, but you bring in a 23-year-old starter who's kind of in this situation we saw with Luzardo, Isaac. So is this more of a trade where Miami was thinking in the long term, given that, you traded Cooper, you traded Reynolds, and you're going to get Weathers, and they finally realized that, maybe their starting pitching depth isn't as luxurious as they may have thought it was. Obviously, Dax Fulton's down, Mike Smyer's down, Jake Eater was just coming back from the Tommy John before he came back, and Noble Meyer's still Noble Meyer. He's young. Thomas White, obviously rebuilding that depth now, but Edward Cabrera has been inconsistent. Braxton and Luzardo pitching career highs. Is this kind of a trade where Miami's finally realizing, yeah, we have pitching depth, but we need some more of it in terms of let's have more just in case.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's also they really like this particular player, and as of right now, they have 7 left-handed pitchers on their staff in the big leagues. So I think they found like a niche. That's the right way to use it. They just like left-handed pitching, and so I do think it's an innings eater for this year. Just in case something bad happens. You saw Cabrera get sent down. If Smeltzer didn't do as well as he did his last outing, I think maybe you see Weathers right now. But yeah, I think it's both for right now and the future. I think he's going to be, like Eli said, a pivotal part of next year's rotation. And if not, probably a way overqualified innings eater out of the bullpen.
The only other thing to point out, Kev, before we go to the break is I talked to Sean briefly right after the trade. And he is in AAA right now, but he definitely told me he has that San Diego series later this month circled on his calendar at Petco Park. Really wants to be there, really wants to pitch against the Marlins, who called him up but did not put him in a game.
They put Robert Garcia over him. I'll remember that.
He really wanted to pitch at Lone Depot Park as a member of the Marlins. It didn't happen for whatever reason that happened in those games. It didn't happen for him. Sent him back. He was kind of discouraged about that, but he's definitely hoping to pitch against Miami, maybe show them what they missed out on, because I think that guy's good. So Yeah, it's going to be a fun series. If he gets called up by then, that'll be something to watch out for. If they call him up to the Padres for that series, that's going to be fun.
I hope they do. So I think with that being said, we could go into a quick break by our amazing sponsors at La Pop, who, as you can see down there, that you can see the whole jits. They're in Doral, and they're Explorer services starting at $99. So let's get popping. We'll see you guys at the other side of the break. Fish on First Live, we are back, and it is time to preview what it should be a pretty fun series for the Texas Rangers. So as we mentioned at the beginning, Miami heads up to the Lone Star State. They'll be facing the Texas Rangers, who currently find themselves at the top of the American League West, and I believe also at the top of the standings in general for all of the American League. They've been one of the best teams in baseball. This is a team who bought Marcus Semien. They got Corey Seager. They have the great Adolis Garcia. They had Josh Young, who they added to their team. And the pitching rotation, they just missed out on Max Scherzer, thankfully, from Miami. But they do have John Gray, Nathan Eovaldi, who's injured. They're facing Jordan Montgomery tonight, who they also got from the trade deadline. So, Isaac, this is probably the toughest team Miami's facing all year, unless you think Atlanta's the better team here.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's the better team, but they're very similar teams. You look at their lineup for tonight, for example, Texas Rangers, and there's quite literally not a single hole in their lineup. Every single batter in that starting nine is capable of making you pay. So it's going to be a very tough task for Luzardo and Sandy and whoever starts tomorrow. Look at all that red. My goodness, Corey Seager is doing exactly what they paid him to do. He and Semien combining for $500 million over the next decade or so, doing exactly what they paid for. And so it's great to see Corey Seager, really bounce back. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career. It's great to see him be bright red like that. But yeah, I would say this team, the Orioles and the Braves, are the consensus top three teams in Major League Baseball. And this one is just very unique. And they got even better. They got Jordan Montgomery. They got Max Scherzer. This is a very complete ball club. They got Aroldis Chapman. This is a very, very tough team. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's a very tough team. You got to just pray you can salvage one of these, because look at that lineup. There is not a single quote-unquote weak spot there.
Quickly with the lineup, you obviously see Mitch Garver. It would have been Jonah Heim. He's out with an injury. Mitch Garver, who also hasn't done much catching for the Rangers since he's been there. So I'm interested to see how that works out. They had to trade for Austin Hedges, who is the worst offensive catcher in baseball. And yeah, there's a catcher worse than Jacob Stallings and Nick Fortes. But Garver, obviously, he's in there for them. Austin Hedges is a phenomenal defensive catcher, probably one of the best framers in baseball. Yes, when you see this lineup, there's a lot that stands out, obviously, with the amount of red on there. But just what do you like about this lineup?
Well, I don't know. I like it. I think as long as the Marlins pitch, they have a chance to win this game. And yeah, I'm also a wrestler fan, so I used to hear Ric Flair say that to beat the man, you have to beat the man. So okay. I think the Marlins have a very good chance. They're gonna want to win, I think.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. That's the name. You like that quote? It's good stuff.
I like it too.
Yeah, to spotlight Corey Seager, Luis Ariz has naturally consumed so much attention for all year long, leading the majors and batting average. But Seager is the one. It's not. He hasn't been a qualified hitter this year because of his injuries. He's been on the IL twice. But when he's been healthy, he is number 2 in all those departments. And he's doing it while also, as you see, being an elite slugger. He is hitting the ball better than he ever has before, which is saying a lot for somebody who has been previously in the MVP conversation when he was with the Dodgers. He is being everything that the Rangers wanted him to. He's living up to that contract, even when he's not on the field 100% of the time. Rough timing for the Marlins. As Kevin mentioned, they're missing their primary catcher and Jonah Heim. Aside from that, it is a pretty deep lineup. And even their backup catcher, Mitch Garver, he is no drop off as a hitter. He is still a very good hitter. It's
really
the drop off
good, yeah.
defensively with him that we'll be curious to see how it goes. In this particular series opener, the starting pitcher, if you scroll down, that is Jordan Montgomery making his debut for the Rangers after being traded. This is a player that we talked a lot about as being a potential Marlins target. Montgomery as a pending free agent. He's just a really consistently above average guy. But the Rangers are so determined to win right now that they were even adding, they have invested so much in like trying to win this year. And we'll see exactly how that translates with Montgomery. Not an overpowering guy, just a one that is just so reliable and is really trustworthy for this team. So it is an extremely deep team. Record-wise, nowhere close to where the Braves are. But if you look at their run differential entering today, they were exactly the same as the Braves. So this is a team that is even better than the wins and losses suggest that they are. They made a really big push here in order to they have a great chance of making the playoffs, but they're trying to edge out the division and beat the Astros, which is something that going into every year, you just assume the Astros are going to be the best team in the West. And the Rangers, a lot of things have gone right for this team for them to make a serious threat to actually finish on top.
Yeah, it's a team to root for because remember back to 2020, the first year of Globe Life Field, and they can have any fans in the first year of their new ballpark. And, they were able to host some playoff games that year, obviously. And 2021, I think they had 100% capacity all of 2021 and since then. But still, this is a fun team to root for. It's the money.
There's one player in this lineup tonight that is qualified that doesn't have over 100 WRC plus. That's Robbie Grossman. So he has an 87, which is just still not bad. So this is a team that is very, very good. They don't manage strikeouts very well. That's what I will say, except for the first two hitters. They don't manage strikeouts very well.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, the first two hitters do. Simeon and Seager do. But the rest of this lineup doesn't manage strikeouts very well. What they do is they put balls in play on a very, very consistent basis to get to where I said every single player except for one qualified player in this lineup, Robbie Grossman, does not have a 100 WRC plus. That's insane. And then, like Kevin said earlier, they backed it up this deadline. They knew they needed pitching, and they went on and got two of the best pitchers in baseball. That's Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery. Crazy. So they're bought in completely this year. This team could return to glory for the first time in a while as a World Series participant. I don't think they've participated in a World Series for a while. And I don't think it's been a long time since they've won a World Series. Probably not since Nolan Ryan's days, right? Since they've won a World Series?
Since they've been since that David Freese World Series, right? For the Rangers?
Yeah, they haven't won it since David Freese, yeah.
No, they haven't been in it.
They haven't been in it since then. I don't think when was the last time they won?
Never.
They were in it again.
They've never won, not even.
They've never won a World Series as the Rangers. It's the Rangers and the Padres. Those are the two franchises that you don't even think about long in the Rays, of course. That's a much shorter period. The Padres.
They did it with Nolan Ryan, but apparently they didn't. So this is definitely a year that they could definitely do it, and that's exciting for that fan base. But this lineup is real scary, as Isaac said, very good. It's going to be a tough series for the Marlins. We'll see.
Very quickly, last time Jordan Montgomery hasn't been very long since Miami last saw him. It was on July 18th against Miami when they were, I think it was at St. Louis.
Yeah,
and he went 6 innings, struck out 5, only walked 2, and only gave up 1 run. So Miami has themselves a challenge today with Montgomery, and obviously Miami's offense is a lot better, a lot deeper. And we go look at this lineup because it is a lineup. Just look at Avi Garcia in center field. I think that just tells you enough about where Miami's going with this. But obviously, Luis Arraez, Jorge Soler, Josh Bell once again at third. I had asked Skip where we could see Josh Bell, given that he's been more of a switch hitter guy, and he said 4 or 5. But obviously, he feels good about what he did in the series against Philly. He's third. So, Yesy, obviously, you look at this lineup. Just what stands out to you? Obviously, I think Avi Garcia, given he's in center field tonight.
Well, I think they keep putting Luis Arraez at the first place. I think if they move him a little bit, because it has been the same for a couple of games, or they can mix it up a little bit more, I think. And as I say, as long as they have good pitching, they have a chance to win.
Well, who would you
and Sandy?
If you move Arraez down, who would you bat in the leadoff spot instead of him if you wanted to put him somewhere else in the lineup?
Probably Bertie
No,
Yeah,
not bad.
no, Birdie's
because
been
he's
great.
fast.
Yeah, he's been fast. He's been great. It's what stands out to me is the Marlins are doing a heavy platoon here. It's almost all righty hitters except for Arise against Montgomery. That includes sitting down Joey Wendell, who has been in an awful slump. That I think people are finally noticing that he has now gone a couple weeks without getting a single hit for this team. I mentioned it on Twitter. He had played in 42 straight games, Joey Wendell. He's been playing every single day for a couple months now. And even though he's not performing well, just because they need a shortstop, they don't feel really confident about shortstop. But Birdie himself, I guess, he's stepped up enough so that for the near-term future, I think you have to ride with Birdie as your main shortstop until Wendell gets out of this. As long as Wendell has had such a long track record of being a really solid player, but for whatever reason, like things have taken such a bad turn for him recently that just having him out of the lineup is an addition by subtraction, I think, for this offense. So having him out of there. Aside from that, we need to touch on Avi playing center field. He has not played center field as a Marlin in a real game. They did it a little bit in spring training over the last couple of years, but never in a real game. This is his first time doing it since he was with the Brewers, and really 3 years since any real playing time. In 2020, that was his main position, center field. It did not go great. The Brewers really had no other options. He was kind of there because he had to be there, and they're making a choice here. The reason why he's playing tonight is because they really want to rest the lefties. They want to, with Jazz coming back from his injury recently, and then with Jesus Sanchez, they don't trust him to hit against left-handed pitching, so much so that they'd rather have Avi in center field. The combination of him and Soler playing in right field so that Bell can be a DH, and also DLC in left field. He's not played well defensively either. That combination, this is the worst defensive outfield that they've put together in any game this year.
Yeah.
Do you think
Go
they should bring up Amaya? Since
Edwards, Xavier Edwards. Got to bring up Xavier Edwards.
Amaya has struggled since
Absolutely.
She asked you about Amaya, Carver. Dear Lord.
No, not Amaya. So no, Edwards in place of Amaya. Man, it's been really tough for Wendell, as Eli said. I would definitely like to see Xavier Edwards. He's been really good in AAA. This guy deserves his shot, and Wendell has just been—he's on an expiry deal. Man, you're benching him tonight. I mean, I know that that's not his usual role to start every day, like Eli said. Now, with Birdie performing, I would actually agree with you, Nessie, that this guy could be a guy that you put in the leadoff spot instead of Arias. Doesn't hit the ball hard, but gets on base and doesn't strike out, right? So it's definitely a guy that you could definitely switch to the leadoff spot maybe. He just had 11 game hit streak or something like that before he lost it. But yeah, no, if you're gonna call a guy up, it has to be Xavier Edwards. That guy is super solid. Can play center field, kind of fakes it out there. I think more so he's a middle infielder more so than anything. I don't think he's a third baseman, more so a middle infielder. But with Berger, you have the freedom to move him to shortstop. If Arias is out, you put him in second base. Can put him in center field. Tons of flexibility. That guy's got to be up, especially with Wendell struggling as much as he has. So what I would like to see is an option of Joey Wendell and a recall of Xavier Edwards. I'm not Kim Ang, but that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, really quickly, just with Amaya, he struggled since being sent back down. So I would find it, obviously, defensively, he's still really good. That's obviously what leads for him. But when you look at the bat, it just hasn't been there at all. I'm trying to find the splits ever since he came back to they're here. All right.
I was thinking Amaya because they need a shortstop, and I think Edwards doesn't play shortstop.
He can probably fake it, but they've been trying him at second, center field mainly, maybe a little third base. But
it has been pretty telling that Edwards has not played even 1 second at shortstop this whole year in AAA. Usually, if they feel that is an option, they give those guys an occasional opportunity to do so. It's not like they don't need to play Amaya every single day there. If they felt that Edwards really had a chance to contribute, that they would have put him there at some point this year in AAA, and they haven't done so. Instead, they've putting him at third base recently instead. So that's the thing. I feel he's already shown enough as a hitter that they can find room for him on this roster, even if it's not like an ideal fit. But yeah, that's the main thing holding him back is their opinion that he can't play shortstop. Otherwise, I think he would be up already. That's the only thing standing in his way at the moment.
I think he's more of a shortstop than third baseman. That's what's crazy.
Right.
But anyways, I think we've talked enough about Edwards. But that's the main guy, like infield guy that can play outfield as well. If they're going to call a guy up, man, he's doing so much at the plate. You got to get that guy here somehow.
And just to
With
give
my
Birdie a little bit
opinion.
more credit, because I think he deserves it. I think his problem is that when he does play every single day, he gets a little exposed. But since June 30th, since my birthday, he's hitting 379 and OPSing of 920. So he has just been absurd. And I know Wendell's been getting the starts against righties. I think you got to just move on from that and have Birdie play every single day until he does get exposed again. Then try out something else. And maybe Wendell a little break for one, just like it helped Segura sitting down for a little bit. Maybe it'll help Wendell.
What do they lose by sending down Wendell though? Like that, I know,
They're not gonna
we
send
don't
down
want
the
to get too
captain.
far, but what do they lose by sending him down? I mean,
Well,
They're
a good
not
defensive
sending down the
shortstop.
captain of the team.
yeah,
Defense.
here we go again. All right, but anyways, he's not performing on the field. That's the main thing. So, anyways, if this goes much farther and the Marlins are still in it for the long haul here in the second half, there has to be an answer there. You can't have just a guy that's not doing basically anything. If this slump continues much longer, there's going to be an answer there, I think.
With Amaya quickly, since going back down to AAA, he's been hitting 246, 319, 365 with a 685 OPS. So I don't think that would be the answer. Obviously, the defense speaks for itself. It's really good, and we could all say that. I mean, the reason Miami traded for Amaya was for that defense, and just with hopes of developing the bat a little bit more. But right now, that's not the case. I guess we could look at the pitching matchups. Obviously, we already spoke a little bit about Jordan Montgomery. They will be seeing, I believe, John Gray tomorrow, and I can't think of the last pitcher who that would be for Texas.
It'll be Andrew Heaney.
Andrew Heaney? Okay, Eli was muted, so you beat him to it.
Former Marlin, let's go.
Former Marlin, yeah. I guess we can look at John Gray.
Hasn't been
later.
his Dodger self this year, from what I gather, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's normal, right? You leave LA and you're pretty meh. Besides Evaldi. Evaldi's been a stud. He's been really good, but he's on the IL.
Another former Marlin.
Yeah, another former Marlin that's injured in this case, but yeah. We can talk a little bit about John Gray, who signed that big deal with Texas, and he wasn't himself, I believe, last year. This season, kind of getting back in the swing of things. So, Eli, if you want to talk a little bit about what we could expect from these Rangers pitchers.
I'll start with Heaney because Heaney had maybe the best start of his career last time out. I was watching it. It was against some terrible team, but I was watching it live, and it was pretty mesmerizing to watch. It was against the White Sox just earlier this week. 11 strikeouts in 6 innings, no walks, only 2 hits in his last outing. This year, overall with him, I think it's fair to say, he has taken a step back from where he was last year. Although he has been relatively healthy this year, making 21 starts for them at this point in the season. Yeah, he's a 5 and dive pitcher, as they say. He goes 5 innings and he gives everything he has before turning it over to the bullpen. So a key will be exactly how much length that the Rangers get from Gray and from Montgomery the first 2 days, because they know they'll need their bullpen a lot in that final day. I'm more interested on what happens Saturday with the Marlins tomorrow, because they still haven't announced their starter. We thought when Smeltzer got selected that maybe Smeltzer would line up to pitch the bulk of the innings, but now they already went through him on Thursday. I don't think he'll be able to give them all that much on Saturday.
Soriano.
So it looks like George Soriano is going to be in that position to be a big piece of tomorrow's game. Yeah, unless they need him in an emergency situation tonight, he is on full rest. He has not pitched at all this entire week, not in the Phillies series whatsoever. We'll see a lot of George Soriano, and Soriano has been really great. He's been he's been more than they probably could have expected. It's been he has earned his spot on this pitching staff down the stretch. Like, they can't send him down, but at the same time, they haven't. It's unclear exactly how they're going to use him. The fact that he is so well rested, that shows that he is lined up to pitch a lot tomorrow. Whether they actually start him or whether they use him in the middle innings behind an opener, we'll see. It's going to be another big test for him. Of course, we just went through the Rangers lineup. This is about as tough a lineup to pitch to as you can possibly imagine. So he will have to, but he has had good results against the Orioles for a few innings in a mop-up role. Against the Braves, he's faced the Braves, and he had a mostly good appearance against them. But it's a different situation if you actually face them with the game on the line and actually before a game is decided. So I'm looking forward to seeing him yet again to see how long he can keep this going.
Yeah, it would be his first major league start if he gets it for George Soriano. Only appeared in relief so far, 11 games in relief. So this would be his debut as a starting pitcher if he does get it.
And then finally, Sandy, who I believe he still has not faced the Rangers in his career. He'll be going up against Andrew Heaney in that final game. Obviously, we saw what he did against the Phillies last time out. Man, if you could get anything similar to what Sandy gave you against Philadelphia, you should be pretty happy. And you could kind of say Sandy's kind of back after that one. Obviously, it's 2 back-to-back good starts against 2 really good teams, the Rays, who, just before that series, they were at the top of the AL East. And obviously, the Orioles overtook that spot. Then you have the Phillies, who were on Miami's ass, basically, is the way you could put it. What can we expect from Sandy on Sunday, Isaac?
Sandy has been good lately. I think he's coming back.
Yeah. His last 2 starts seem to be proving that. Complete game, 1 run against the Tampa Bay Rays, 8 shutout innings against a very tough Philadelphia Phillies lineup that has, really had his number over the past couple seasons, this Philadelphia Phillies team. And he even mentioned in postgame, the Mets, the Braves, he feels like a lot of the National League East teams really give him trouble sometimes. So it was great to see him just completely dominate that team. And I know Carver and I argued, you don't take out your ace in that situation anyway. This is going to be a fun experiment. I'm really excited to see what he does against this really good Texas Rangers ball club.
I think he's pitching with confidence again.
Yes.
You can see the confidence in him.
Yeah. He was asked post-game if he's back, and he said, yes, I am.
Yeah, the bearing of the changeup is what you see. Oh, thank you, Daniel Rodriguez. I appreciate that. But burying the changeup is kind of what you see from Sandy in these last couple starts. Tons of stuff back down near the bottom of the zone versus much more in the zone, which is where he was with that pitch. Didn't really have it in previous starts. That pitch is back for Sandy. It looks really good. Then he's coupling it with the slider as well, which is wiping guys out with. Looks really good. I really, really like – oh, yeah, there you go. I really, really like – everybody should do this. I really like the look of Sandy in the last couple of starts. I would agree. I think this is the Sandy that we expected from the start of the year. It didn't happen, from the start of the season. It took him a little while to get to this level. But, man, he's back, and it looks really good. So, yeah, command looks great. Changeup's back. Slider's good. Fastball velo's there. Sandy's back, man. It looks really good.
Yeah. So
before going to prediction time, I think we should do the reveal for a contest winner for Carver's Khalil Watson baseball card. Just give me a moment to set it up. Yeah, there was a lot of entrants in it. Yeah, let me show that for people. Put it up on the screen one more time. There we go. We're going to find that a new home.
All you need to know, it's going to be worth more now that he's with the Guardians, guys.
Right. So now here we go.
Holy shit, you have a whole wheel, everything.
Right. I put the wheel on the screen. If you look closely, you can zoom in. There are a lot of different names of people who entered on the Marlins Miners account. This is in honor of reaching 8,000 followers. Congrats, Carver, after building that big milestone there. Dozens and dozens of people entered, some of our favorites from Marlins Twitter. We are going to randomly select one with the spin of a wheel. Where's that button for me to press? I think I need to return to a normal setting so that I can see it. Do I click right there? There we go.
Oh.
Who is our lucky winner? It is All the Sports 7. Out of 48 names, that is our lucky winner of this. Let me show it for people. There we go. All the Sports 7. Congratulations. That card is going your way. Alex will be in contact with you for that. Thanks everybody for playing and for following along with what he does at Marlins Miners.
Really appreciate it, guys. Just to be very brief on this, it really is humbling for me to know that over 8,000 people care what I have to say about Marlins prospects. So really appreciate it. I know that Khalil's not on the Marlins anymore, but I will send you a secondary stack of cards as well, including some autographs from Cody Morissette, Isaac's boy, and Peyton Burdick, and a couple of other things that are Marlins related because of the trade. So again, if you didn't win this time, I'll have more stuff in the future. Really appreciate it. Support is really important to me. So definitely appreciate it. And yeah, we'll keep going. So thank
And with that being said, let's go into prediction time.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
Alrighty, prediction time. Let's look at our amazing super subscribers on there. I think it's pretty split down the middle, surprisingly, huh?
Well, that tends to tell you that people are afraid because usually the Marlins get the vast majority of support from our super subscribers. People are optimistic about this team. So the fact that about half of them are going with the Rangers, including a couple sweeps for the Rangers, that shows you that this is one of the tougher matchups you can get at this stage of the season. It's a Rangers team that even with a couple injuries, all they did is they loaded up even more at this deadline. They are a great, well-rounded team. So this could go in a lot of different directions. Yeah, some of the key players we already touched on. We didn't mention Adolis Garcia. He is, to me, he somehow flies below the radar, even though he's a player that's the last really 3 years, he's been such a consistent power threat, run producer, solid defensively as well in right field for them. Yeah, it's an extremely deep team. A lot of enthusiasm still for Jake Berger, the new guy, to an MVP. Only one Luis Arraez pick. Two MVP picks for Luis Arraez. He usually gets a whole lot more, but maybe there's a little bit of Luis Arraez fatigue going on. One final quick look at our updated leaderboard, if I can find it, for prediction time this year. It is an extremely competitive race. Daniel Rodriguez, who is not with us, is now crept within 1 point of first place, in those standings. But Kevin is next up among our staffers there, and you can see the rest of us on there as well. Super subscribers get to play along with us throughout the entire season. You can sign up at fishonfirst.com. Just click that link, and that's one of the many perks that you get.
I have one MVP vote all freaking year. Are you sugaring me?
Are you serious?
Yes, I'm not much better, and Noah still has not had a single MVP pick.
He always chooses Vernon Cruz.
Alrighty.
He somehow stole it.
My MVP will be.
Hold on, just a moment.
Wait.
Oh yes, we're gonna do that. Let's we start the music. Let's
we kick it off with our guest.
Yeah. Let's have her go.
Nessie's ready to go. Let's go.
Okay. Jump into it then. How many games will the Marlins win, and who will be the series MVP? Go ahead.
Marlins will win 2 of the 3 games, I think, because Luzardo and Santi are back. And I can say the MVP too, or
yes, go ahead.
Okay, my MVP will be Josh Bell because he's from Dallas, Texas, so maybe he's gonna show up a little bit over there.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. Go ahead, Isaac.
All right, I've been pessimistic, but I think the Marlins actually take 2 out of 3. I like their matchups against these 3 pitchers that the Rangers are throwing out there. And my MVP will be the clutchest hitter on the team, Jorge Soler.
Okay. My series predictions, I'm going slightly negative here. The Rangers taking 2 out of 3. I just telegraphed my MVP pick. I do have Adolis Garcia getting some very clutch hits for this Rangers team, driving in a lot of runs as they beat the Marlins 2 out of 3. Go ahead, Alex Carver.
Man, took my exact prediction, but I'm going to agree 100% with what Eli just said. Rangers 2 out of 3, and the man that leads the American League in RBIs. That is Mr. Adolis Garcia with an over 500 slugging percentage, 25 plus home runs. That's the MVP. I'm going to go with the exact same thing that Eli just said.
Okay, Kevin, our host.
Let's go Marlins take 2 out of 3. And I think we will have Jake Berger as our series MVP. Feel good. This lineup has a lot more depth in it, and I think when you look 1 through 9, you have a guy who you can pretty much count on. So I feel pretty good. Miami's facing the bottom of that Texas rotation, the weaker part of it. So let's go with that. And with that being said, I think we're good to wrap it up right at the 1 hour mark. So once again, 3 games set. You can follow Fish on First for all your coverage. Tomorrow, Alex and I will be there to watch Noble Myers' first start FCL game. So you'll be getting a lot of video, which you don't usually get. There's absolutely zero content from there. You never get that. So I guess you could say it's exclusive. I guess you could say. So from that, I'll be there with Carver tomorrow at Jupiter. the FCL complex. And with that being said, I think we can wrap it up here. From Eli, from Isaac, from Alex, from Yessi, from myself, we'll see you guys on Monday, I want to say, against the next series, which is Cincinnati. We will have a press box report there. Wink, wink. So from that, yeah, peace out and go fish.